Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through deep space, far from Earth and any other human settlements. Jake had been captain for 3 years now, and this was the longest mission he had ever commanded. 200 crew members depended on him to keep them safe while they explored unknown parts of the galaxy. The New Horizon was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was well built and reliable. It had good sensors, strong engines, and enough supplies to stay in space for months. Jake was proud of his ship and his crew. They had already discovered 2 new planets that might be good for human colonies someday. Lisa Brown, the chief science officer, looked up from her computer screen. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes showed excitement. She had been studying the sensor readings for the past hour. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said. Her voice was calm, but Jake could tell she was. Trying not to get too excited, Jake walked over to her station. The screen showed a map of the nearby star system. 2 large stars spun around each other, surrounded by several planets and many asteroids. But what caught Jake's attention were the energy readings that Lisa pointed to with her finger. "These power signatures are huge," Lisa explained. "Much bigger than anything humans have ever built. And look at this pattern here. These readings are moving in organized groups, like ships flying in formation." Tony Adams, the weapons officer, heard the conversation and came over to look. Tony was a big man with short black hair and strong arms. He had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the Exploration Service. His job was to protect the ship if they ran into trouble. "How many ships are we talking about?" Tony asked. Lisa checked her computer again. "At least 30, maybe more. They're spread out across the system, but they're all clearly artificial. This isn't natural energy from the stars or planets." Amy Clark sat at the communications station nearby. She was young, only 25, but she was the best communications specialist Jake had ever worked with. Amy could speak 6 human languages and understand radio signals better than anyone else on the ship. "Amy, are you picking up any transmissions?" Jake asked. Amy put on her headphones and started adjusting the radio equipment. After a few minutes, her eyes went wide. She looked up at Jake with surprise and excitement. "Captain, there's a lot of chatter out there. I'm hearing dozens of different signals, all on different frequencies. They're not speaking any human language, but the patterns suggest intelligent communication. Some of it sounds like normal conversation, and some of it sounds more formal, like official announcements." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all of human history, they had never found proof of intelligent alien life. Earth had been sending radio signals into space for over a century, hoping someone would answer back. But space had always been silent, until now. "Can you understand any of it?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "Not the language, but I can tell there are multiple species talking. The voice patterns and signal types are completely different from each other. It's like listening to a busy marketplace, where everyone speaks a different language." Lisa was already running more detailed scans. "Captain, I'm seeing evidence of advanced technology. Some of these ships are using power sources I can't even identify. Their engines produce energy fields that our textbooks say should be impossible." Jake made a decision. "Amy, prepare a first contact message. Use the standard protocols we learned in training. Mathematical sequences, universal constants, peaceful intentions. Broadcast it on multiple frequencies." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Message ready, Captain." "Send it." The bridge became quiet as Amy transmitted. Humanity's first attempt at interstellar communication. The message included basic mathematics, the periodic table of elements, and images showing human appearance and culture. It was designed to prove that humans were intelligent and peaceful, Minutes passed, then an hour. The alien chatter continued. As if nothing had happened. Try again, Jake ordered. Maybe they didn't receive it clearly. Amy sent the message again, this time with more power and on more frequencies. Still no response. Tony crossed his arms and frowned. Maybe they're being careful. If I saw an unknown ship in human space, I'd want to study it before making contact. Or maybe they think we're not worth talking to, Lisa said quietly. Jake didn't want to believe that, but as the hours passed with no response, it became harder to ignore. The alien ships continued their business, flying between planets and space stations like humans were not even there. Amy kept monitoring the communications. Captain, I'm learning more about their conversations. They're discussing trade routes, shipping schedules, and something called territorial boundaries. This system seems to be some kind of commercial hub. What about us? Are they saying anything about detecting our ship? Amy listened carefully for several minutes. Nothing. They're not mentioning any unknown vessels or new contacts. It's like we don't exist. The sun was setting on Earth time when Jake finally admitted the truth to himself. The aliens knew humans were there, but they were choosing to ignore them. For whatever reason, humanity was not important enough to acknowledge. Jake stared out at the stars and thought about what this meant. Humans had always imagined that first contact would be a historic moment, a time when two civilizations would meet as equals and share knowledge. But instead, humanity was being treated like insects that were too small to notice. Keep monitoring their communications, Jake told Amy, and keep sending our message every hour. Maybe they'll change their minds. But deep down, Jake was already thinking about other options. If humanity wanted to join the galactic community, they would have to find a way to make themselves impossible to ignore. 3 days passed, and nothing changed. Amy continued sending first contact messages every hour, but the aliens still ignored them completely. The crew of the New Horizon was getting frustrated and disappointed. Many of them had dreamed their whole lives about meeting alien civilizations, and now that dream was turning into a nightmare of being overlooked. Jake called a meeting with his senior officers in the main conference room. Lisa brought her computer tablet with all the censored data she had collected. Tony carried a folder full of tactical reports about the alien ships. Amy had printed out pages of communication logs that showed the aliens were definitely aware of human presence, but chose not to respond. Let's review what we know, Jake said as everyone sat down around the metal table. The conference room was small and simple, with gray walls and basic furniture. It was designed for function, not comfort. Lisa spoke first. Our ship's power output is tiny compared to the alien vessels. The smallest alien ship I've detected produces 10 times more energy than our main reactor. The largest ones produce 100 times more. To them, we probably look like a primitive probe or a piece of space junk. Tony opened his folder and spread out some papers. I've been studying their ship movements and formations. They're definitely military vessels mixed in with civilian ships, but their weapons are all energy-based. Laser cannons, plasma beams, things like that. Very advanced, but I think they've forgotten about simpler weapons. What do you mean? Jake asked. Tony pulled out a diagram of human missile systems. Look at this. We still use rockets and explosive warheads because they work and they're cheap to build. But these aliens have moved beyond kinetic weapons completely. Their ships don't even have armor plating in the traditional sense. They rely entirely on energy shields. Amy looked through her communication logs. Captain, I've learned something important about their society. They seem to rank species by technological development. The more advanced your technology, the more respect you get. Species with primitive technology are ignored or treated as unimportant. Jake rubbed his chin as he thought about this information. So we're stuck in a loop. We can't get their attention because our technology isn't advanced enough, but we can't advance our technology without their help. Lisa suddenly looked up from her tablet with excitement. Wait, I think I found something. Amy, you said they rank species by technology, right? But what if we showed them technology they don't understand? What do you mean? Amy asked. Lisa turned her tablet around so everyone could see the screen. It showed a detailed analysis of alien ship construction. Look at their hull designs. They're built for maximum energy efficiency and speed. But they have a major weakness. Their energy shields are designed to deflect other energy weapons. They've never had to defend against solid projectiles. Tony's eyes lit up as he understood what Lisa was suggesting. You mean our missiles could actually be effective against their ships? Not effective as weapons, Lisa said quickly. I'm not suggesting we start a war, but effective as a demonstration. A way to show them that humans have technology they don't understand. Jake leaned forward in his chair. This was the first hopeful idea anyone had presented in 3 days. Explain your thinking. Lisa pulled up more data on her tablet. These aliens have been spacefaring for thousands of years. They've evolved beyond chemical rockets and explosive warheads because they found better alternatives. But that means they've also forgotten how to defend against those older technologies. Amy was reading through her communication logs again. Captain, there's something else. I've been monitoring their transmissions about a big diplomatic meeting. They call it the Conclave of Worlds. Representatives from dozens of species are gathering at a space station in this system. It's happening in 2 days. A diplomatic meeting, Jake repeated. That could be our chance. Tony was studying the tactical implications. If we're going to make a demonstration, that would be the perfect time. Maximum number of witnesses, all the important species in one place. Lisa nodded. And the space station would be the perfect target. Not to damage it, but to show that our weapons could reach it if we wanted them to. Jake looked around the table at his officers. They were all smart, capable people who had trained for years to handle first contact situations. But none of their training had prepared them for being completely ignored. Let me make sure I understand this plan, Jake said slowly. We would fire missiles near the alien space station, not to hurt anyone, but to prove that our primitive weapons can bypass their advanced defenses. Exactly, Lisa said. It would force them to acknowledge us, because we'd be demonstrating a security vulnerability they didn't know they had. Amy was getting excited about the idea. And once we have their attention, we can offer to share our knowledge about kinetic weapons in exchange for diplomatic recognition. Tony was more cautious. Captain, this plan has a lot of risk. If they see our missile launch as an attack, they could destroy us before we have a chance to explain ourselves. Jake knew Tony was right. The plan could easily go wrong and get them all killed. But doing nothing meant returning to Earth with news that humans had found intelligent aliens, but were too unimportant to talk to. That would be almost as bad as never finding aliens at all. What kind of missiles would we use? Jake asked Tony. Tony thought for a moment. Standard Mark 7 torpedoes, but with the warheads removed. We want them to see the missiles coming and have time to react. If we use our fastest weapons, they might not realize what happened until it's too late. Lisa was already working on calculations. I can plot a course that takes the missiles close to the station, but not directly at it. That way, there's no chance of accidental impact, even if something goes wrong. Amy was planning the communication aspect. I'll prepare a message to broadcast right before we launch. We need to make it clear that this is a peaceful demonstration, not an attack. Jake looked out the conference room window at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, dozens of alien species were going about their business, treating humans like they were invisible. In 2 days, that was going to change one way or another. All right, Jake said finally. We'll call it Operation Durnhoek. Lisa, start calculating missile trajectories. Tony, prepare the weapon systems, but make sure the warheads are completely removed. Amy, draft a message that explains our intentions clearly. And everyone remember, this is either going to make us the first humans to successfully contact aliens, or the last humans anyone ever hears from. The meeting ended with everyone having specific tasks to complete. As his officers left the conference room, Jake remained behind to look out at the stars again. Tomorrow, they would begin preparing for the most important gamble in human history. The day of the conclave of worlds arrived with nervous energy, filling every corner of the new horizon. Jake had barely slept the night before, running through the plan over and over in his mind. If everything went right, humanity would finally get the attention they deserved. If it went wrong, the new horizon might become a cloud of space dust in the next few hours. Lisa had spent the morning making final calculations for the missile trajectories. She double-checked every number to make sure the torpedoes would pass close to the alien space station without any risk of hitting it. The margin for error was thin, but she was confident in her work that Tony had removed the warheads from 6 Mark 7 torpedoes and replaced them with simple flash charges that would create bright explosions visible from long distances. The missiles would be harmless but impressive, like fireworks designed to get attention rather than cause damage. Amy had written and rewritten her message dozens of times. It needed to be clear, peaceful, and impossible to misunderstand. She had also figured out how to broadcast on all the communication frequencies the aliens used, ensuring that every species at the conclave would hear humanity's words at the same time. The alien space station hung in space like a giant crystal, beautiful and strange. It was larger than any structure humans had ever built, with thousands of lights showing where different species lived and worked inside. Dozens of alien ships surrounded the station, from sleek diplomatic vessels to massive cargo haulers that carried goods between star systems. Jake stood on the bridge and looked at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for a dangerous mission because they believed in exploration and discovery. They deserved to be remembered as heroes, not as victims of a plan that went wrong. All stations, report readiness, Jake said into his communication device. Science station ready. Lisa replied from her position. Missile trajectories locked and confirmed safe. Weapons station ready, Tony said. 6 torpedoes loaded and armed with flash charges only. Warheads confirmed removed. Communications ready, Amy said. Message prepared and ready to broadcast. On all alien frequencies. Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything, one way or another. Amy, open a channel to all alien vessels and the space station. Amy's fingers moved over her controls, and a green light appeared on her screen. Channel open, Captain. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Jake picked up the microphone and spoke in his clearest, calmest voice. This is Captain Jake Martinez of the human vessel New Horizon. We have been attempting peaceful contact with your species for several days. Our diplomatic messages have been ignored, so we are switching to a more direct approach. Please do not be alarmed by our demonstration. We mean no harm to any species or vessel. This is simply our way of saying hello. Jake nodded to Tony, who pressed the launch button. 6 missiles streaked away from the New Horizon, their rocket engines burning bright orange against the darkness of space. The torpedoes moved much slower than alien energy weapons, giving everyone plenty of time to see them coming. The reaction from the alien ships was immediate and dramatic. Energy shields that had been invisible suddenly blazed to life around every vessel. The beautiful colors of the shield barriers lit up space like a rainbow, but the missiles passed right through them as if the shields were not even there. Amy was monitoring the alien communications, and her eyes went wide as she listened to the panicked voices. "Captain, they're going crazy. I'm hearing words that sound like their version of curse words. Someone just said something that translates roughly to, 'What kind of primitive barbarism is this?'" The missiles reached their target points near the space station and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The explosions were harmless but spectacular, creating expanding spheres of glowing gas that were visible from thousands of kilometers away. Lisa was watching her sensors carefully. "Captain, look at their shield frequencies. They're trying to recalibrate their defenses, but they don't know how to stop solid projectiles. Their shields are designed for energy weapons only." On the main screen, Jake could see alien ships moving into defensive formations. Some of the smaller vessels were actually hiding behind larger ones, using them as physical barriers since their energy shields had proven useless. Tony was amazed by what his simple missiles had accomplished. "Captain, I don't think they've seen kinetic weapons in centuries. Look at how they're reacting. They're treating our rockets like some kind of super weapon." Amy was still listening to the alien communications. "Captain, the space station is demanding to know who fired those projectiles. Multiple species are asking their military commanders why their shields didn't work. Someone just said these weapons violate several interstellar treaties." Jake realized that humanity had just done something completely unprecedented in galactic history. The aliens had evolved so far beyond simple rockets and explosives that they had forgotten such weapons could even exist. To them, humans had just demonstrated impossible technology. "Amy, prepare a follow-up message," Jake ordered. "Tell them we want to discuss peaceful diplomatic relations." Amy quickly composed a new transmission. "Attention all species at the Conclave of Worlds. The human vessel New Horizon requests permission to send representatives for diplomatic talks. We have no hostile intentions. Our demonstration was simply meant to get your attention since our previous messages were ignored." The response came, faster than expected. A deep, alien voice spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "Human vessel, this is Ambassador Kethfor of the Zelani Republic, current chair of the Conclave Council. You will immediately explain the nature of your weapons technology. Your projectiles bypassed our defensive systems in a manner we did not believe was possible." Jake felt a surge of excitement. They were finally talking to aliens, and the aliens were taking humans seriously. "Ambassador Kethfor, we would be happy to discuss our technology. Our weapons are based on simple kinetic principles that your species may have abandoned long ago. We propose a cultural and technological exchange." There was a long pause before the ambassador responded. "Captain Martinez, the Conclave Council requires an immediate meeting with your representatives. We must understand the implications of your demonstration. A transport will be dispatched to bring your delegation to the station." Lisa turned to Jake with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, we did it. They're finally paying attention to us." Tony was grinning as he secured the weapon systems. "I never thought a few old-fashioned rockets would impress anyone, but I guess sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Amy was already preparing for the diplomatic meeting. "Captain, I'm downloading translation software and cultural briefings. We need to be ready for formal negotiations." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. A few hours ago, they were nobody special, just another human ship exploring empty space. Now they were about to become the first humans to attend an interstellar diplomatic meeting. "Lisa, Tony, Amy, you're coming with me to the station. The rest of the crew will maintain position here and be ready for anything." As they prepared to leave the ship, Jake thought about how this moment would be remembered in human history. Sometimes the best way to open a door was not with a key, but with a knock loud enough that everyone had to listen. And humanity had just knocked on the door of the galaxy with rockets. The alien transport ship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Its hull seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed and changed shape as it moved through space. There were no visible engines or weapons, just smooth curves it somehow pushed. The vessel forward faster than human technology should have allowed. Jake, Lisa, Tony, and Amy sat in seats that adjusted automatically to fit their human bodies. The interior of the transport was filled with soft, colored lights that seemed to respond to their presence. Amy was fascinated by the technology, while Tony kept looking around suspiciously for hidden weapons. "I'm reading energy patterns I can't even classify," Lisa whispered as she checked her portable scanner. "This ship violates at least 3 laws of physics that I thought were absolute." The journey to the space station took only minutes, but it felt much longer. Jake used the time to review what they knew about galactic politics and alien cultures. Most of their information came from Amy's analysis of intercepted communications, which was not much to base a diplomatic strategy on. The space station grew larger as they approached, revealing details that were invisible from far away. The crystal structure was actually made of thousands of smaller sections, each one designed for a different species. Some areas had bright lights and open spaces, while others were dark and maze-like. It was like looking at a city built by dozens of different architects who had never talked to each other. "Look at the size of this place," Tony said in amazement. "There must be hundreds of thousands of beings living here." Amy was listening to the communication traffic around the station. "Captain, I'm hearing a lot of nervous chatter. Our missile demonstration really shook them up. Some species are demanding increased security, while others want to study our technology immediately." The transport docked at a section of the station that seemed designed for diplomatic meetings. The walls were neutral colors, and the architecture was simple enough that any species could feel comfortable there. As they walked through the corridors, Jake saw his first aliens up close. A group of tall, thin beings with blue skin and 4 arms walked past, speaking in musical tones that Amy's translator converted to words about trade regulations. Another species looked like walking trees with silver bark and leaves that glowed with their own light. They moved slowly, but with obvious intelligence, discussing something about territorial boundaries. "Captain," Amy whispered, "my translator is picking up dozens of different languages. This place is like a galactic United Nations, but much bigger." They were led to a massive amphitheater with seats arranged in circles that went up toward domed ceiling. Representatives from different species sat in sections designed for their specific needs. Some areas had water for aquatic beings. Others had high-pressure atmosphere for species from heavy-gravity worlds, and some were completely dark for creatures that lived without light. At the center of the amphitheater stood Ambassador Kethvar of the Zelani Republic. He was roughly humanoid, but much taller than any human, with gray skin that had a metallic shine. His eyes were large and completely black, and he wore robes that seemed to be made of woven starlight. "Representatives of humanity, Ambassador," Kethvar said in a voice that echoed throughout the chamber. "You have caused considerable disruption to our proceedings today. The Conclave of Worlds has not seen such chaos in over 3 centuries. Jake stepped forward and tried to project confidence he did not entirely feel. "Ambassador Kethvar, we apologize for any disruption. Our intention was simply to establish communication with the galactic community. Our previous diplomatic messages were ignored." A new voice spoke from somewhere in the amphitheater. Jake could not see the speaker, but Amy's translator identified them as General Vos of the Corvan Military Alliance. "Captain Martinez, your weapons technology represents a serious security threat. Our defensive systems are designed to protect against energy weapons, not primitive kinetic projectiles." Lisa had been studying the various species in the amphitheater, and she stood up to respond. "General Vos, we call them primitive, but that doesn't mean they're ineffective. Sometimes older technology has advantages that newer technology has forgotten." Another alien, This one, with a voice like grinding stone, spoke from the dark section of the chamber. "I am High Chancellor Nix of the Terran Empire." Jake noted the irony that these aliens had named their empire after Earth's old name. "Your demonstration suggests that your species has maintained technologies that the rest of the galaxy has abandoned. This could be valuable or dangerous, depending on your intentions." Tony felt it was his turn to speak. "High Chancellor, our intentions are peaceful. We're explorers and scientists, not conquerors. We used our missiles as a demonstration because it was the only way to get your attention." Ambassador Kethver gestured with one of his 4 arms, and the amphitheater became quiet. The question before the conclave is whether humanity should be granted recognition as a spacefaring species. This decision has not been made lightly in over 500 years. A beautiful crystalline being that looked like living diamonds spoke next. Amy's translator identified them as Speaker Jex of the Makari Collective. "The humans have shown both innovation and restraint. Their weapons could have been used destructively, but they chose to use them as communication tools instead." General Voss was not convinced. "Speaker Jex, their technology represents a gap in our defenses that we were not aware of. If humans can develop kinetic weapons, so can other species. This could destabilize the entire galactic security framework." Jake realized this was his moment to make humanity's case. "General Voss, that's exactly why you should work with us instead of against us. We can help you understand and defend against kinetic weapons, but only if we're partners, not enemies." Lisa added her scientific perspective. "The galaxy has advanced beyond kinetic weapons because you found better alternatives. But that doesn't mean kinetic weapons became useless. They became unexpected. Sometimes the best solution to a problem is the one nobody thinks to try." High Chancellor Nix's grinding voice filled the chamber again. "The humans propose a trade of knowledge. Their kinetic technology for our recognition and advanced sciences. But can we trust a species that opens diplomatic relations with weapons? Fire?" Amy stepped forward for the first time. "High Chancellor, humans have a saying that sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. We tried polite diplomacy for days and were completely ignored. We chose the smallest possible disruption that would guarantee your attention." Ambassador Kethver looked around the amphitheater at the hundreds of alien representatives. "The conclave will now debate humanity's petition for recognition. The humans will wait in the diplomatic chambers while we reach a decision." As they were led out of the amphitheater, Jake heard the beginning of what would clearly be a heated debate. Some species were arguing that humans were too dangerous to ignore, while others insisted they were too primitive to take seriously. A few voices suggested that humanity's innovative thinking could benefit the entire galaxy. In the diplomatic chambers, which were comfortable rooms designed for waiting, the 4 humans sat around a table and tried to process what had just happened. "I think we made a good impression," Lisa said optimistically. "Several species seemed interested in our technology and our way of thinking." Tony was less certain. "Some of them definitely see us as a threat. That General Voss wants to study our weapons so he can defend against them." Amy was monitoring the communication channels, listening to the debate in the amphitheater. "Captain, it's hard to follow everything, but it sounds like the vote is going to be close. Some species are really excited about working with humans, but others are worried about setting a dangerous precedent." Jake looked out the window at the amazing alien city around them. 12 hours ago, humanity had been alone in the universe as far as they knew. Now they were waiting to find out if they would be welcomed into a community of dozens of intelligent species. The debate continued for hours, with passionate arguments on all sides. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance, and all they could do was wait. After 12 long hours of waiting, Ambassador Kethvar finally called the human delegation back to the amphitheater. Jake felt exhausted from the tension and uncertainty, but he tried to look confident as they walked through the corridors filled with alien beings. Many of the creatures they passed stopped to stare at the humans, clearly curious about the species that had disrupted the galaxy's longest period of peaceful stability. The amphitheater was quieter now than it had been during the debate. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas, but the energy in the room felt different. Some aliens looked excited, others appeared worried, and a few seemed angry about whatever decision had been reached. Ambassador Kethvar stood at the center of the chamber, his tall figure imposing under the bright lights. His black eyes reflected no emotion as he looked at the 4 humans who had changed everything with a few simple rockets. Representatives of humanity, Ambassador Kethvar began, his voice carrying clearly throughout the vast space. The conclave of worlds has reached a decision regarding your species' petition for recognition. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Everything humanity had dreamed about for centuries came down to the next few words from this alien diplomat. By a vote of 28 in favor, 15 opposed, and 4 abstentions, the conclave grants humanity provisional species status within the galactic community. The chamber erupted in a mixture of celebration and protest. Some species made sounds that Amy's translator interpreted as cheering, while others expressed what were clearly objections to the decision. Jake felt a wave of relief and excitement wash over him, but he forced himself to stay focused on Ambassador Kethvar's continued announcement. However, the ambassador continued, raising one of his arms to restore order, this recognition comes with specific conditions that have never before been applied to a new species. Lisa squeezed Jake's arm nervously. They had won recognition, but at what cost? Ambassador Kethvar gestured to a floating holographic display that appeared in the center of the chamber. The display showed a formal document written in dozens of different alien languages, with English included at the bottom. The terms of humanity's integration are as follows. The ambassador read from the document. First, humans will share their knowledge of kinetic weapons technology with the Galactic Defense Consortium. This includes theoretical principles, practical applications, and defensive countermeasures. General Voss spoke from his section of the amphitheater. This knowledge sharing will help us protect all species from the security vulnerability that humans have revealed. Ambassador Kethvar continued reading. Second, the human homeworld of Earth will be granted protected status during a 50-year integration period. No species may approach Earth without explicit permission from both humanity and the Galactic Council. Jake was surprised by this condition. He had expected demands and restrictions, not protection for Earth. Speaker Jex of the Makari Collective explained the reasoning. New species often struggle with rapid technological advancement. The integration period allows humans to develop at their own pace while learning from galactic civilization. Third, Ambassador Kethvar read, humanity will receive basic faster-than-light communication technology and limited space travel capabilities. Full access to advanced galactic technology will be granted gradually based on demonstrated responsibility and compatibility. High Chancellor Nix added her grinding voice to the explanation. Some technologies are too dangerous for species that have not proven their wisdom. Humans will earn greater access through peaceful cooperation. Amy was frantically taking notes, trying to record every detail of this historic agreement. This was the most important diplomatic document in human history, and she wanted to make sure Earth received an accurate copy. Finally, Ambassador Kethvar concluded, humanity will participate in cultural and scientific exchange programs with willing species. The goal is mutual benefit and understanding between humans and the galactic community. The holographic document rotated slowly, showing the formal signatures and seals of species that had voted in favor of human recognition. Jake realized he was looking at humanity's admission ticket to the galaxy. Speaker Jex stood up from her crystalline section of the amphitheater. Captain Martinez. The Macari Collective formally requests an exchange program focused on human creativity and problem-solving. Methods. Your species' ability to find unexpected solutions to complex problems could benefit our research efforts. A new voice spoke from an area Jake had not noticed before. The speaker was aquatic, being surrounded by a bubble of water, identified by Amy's translator as Admiral Glex of the Gerillian Federation. The Gerillian Federation offers medical technology in exchange for human agricultural techniques. Your species has achieved remarkable food production efficiency on a single planet. Even General Voss, who had been skeptical of humans throughout the debate, offered cooperation. The Corvin Military Alliance will provide basic defensive technology in exchange for tactical innovation training. Human military thinking appears to be quite different from galactic norms. Jake stepped forward to respond to these offers, but first he needed to address the formal agreement. Ambassador Kethver, on behalf of humanity, I accept the terms of integration into the galactic community. I will sign the accords and carry them back to Earth for ratification by our governments. The signing ceremony was surprisingly simple. Jake used a device that translated his signature into a format that all galactic species could recognize. As his name appeared on the holographic document, alongside dozens of alien signatures, he realized he was making history. Lisa was already excited about the scientific exchange opportunities. Captain, think about what we can learn from these species. And think about what we can teach them. Human science might be primitive in some ways, but it's also creative and unpredictable. Tony was impressed by the military cooperation offers. I never thought my weapons training would make me a galactic diplomat, but I guess human military thinking really is different from what they're used to. Amy was overwhelmed by the communication and translation challenges ahead. Captain, I'm going to need to learn dozens of alien languages. But just think about the stories I'll be able to tell. Humanity is no longer alone in the universe. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Kethvar approached the human delegation personally. Captain Martinez, your species has achieved something remarkable today. In 500 years, no new species has forced the galaxy to reconsider its assumptions about technology and diplomacy. Jake shook the ambassador's hand, noting that the alien skin felt warm and slightly metallic. Ambassador, humans have a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. Sometimes being ignored is exactly the motivation you need to find a new approach. The journey back to the new horizon was filled with excited planning and discussion. The crew greeted their returning officers with cheers and celebration when they learned about humanity's acceptance into the galactic community. Pete Walsh, the chief engineer, was particularly excited about the faster-than-light technology they would receive. Captain, with FTL communication, we can stay in touch with Earth during our missions. And FTL travel means we can explore the galaxy properly, instead of spending decades reaching nearby star systems. As Jake sat in his captain's chair and looked out at the alien ships that were no longer ignoring humanity, he thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The New Horizon had left Earth as an exploration vessel on a routine mission. They were returning as Earth's first interstellar ambassadors. Jake opened his personal log and began recording what would become one of the most important entries in human history. Captain's log, final entry for the first contact mission. We came to the stars seeking knowledge and found ourselves becoming teachers. We learned that sometimes the best way to open a door is not with a key, but with a knock loud enough that everyone has to listen. Jake paused and looked around the bridge at his crew, who were all busy preparing for the journey home. They were no longer just explorers. They were pioneers who had opened a path between Earth and the galaxy. The New Horizon is returning to Earth with news that will change everything. Humanity's age of isolation is over. We are no longer alone, And we proved that we belong among the stars, not by being the most advanced species, but by being the most. Determined to make ourselves heard, the ship turned toward Earth, carrying the most important cargo in human history. Behind them, the alien space station continued its business, but now that business included humanity. And it had all started with a few well-placed rockets that reminded the galaxy that sometimes the old ways are still the best ways.